Okay, that's great. Well, welcome everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to our weekly seminar series of Dahdaleh Institute for Global Health Research. My name is James Orbinski, and I'm the director of the Dahdaleh Institute for Global Health Research. And today we're delighted to host Harvey Skinner, who's going to lead today's seminar, which is entitled Healing Ourselves, Healing Others, Healing Our World. And he's added on a little addendum, a vision for the Dahdaleh Institute. And before we start the seminar, and as is our usual practice, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the indigenous land that we're on. This is a hybrid event with many people online. Some guests are on different physical territories. So please take the time to give thanks and respect to the land on which you are currently living and working today. And today I'm here at the York University campus in Toronto, and we're situated on the traditional territorial area known as Takaronto, and we acknowledge its current treaty holders, which are the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. And we also acknowledge this as, the traditional territory of many indigenous nations, including the Anishinaabe Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Huron-Wendat, and of course the Métis. And this territory is subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which is an agreement to peaceably share and care for the Great Lakes region. I think that actually is a great starting point for today's seminar, led by Harvey Skinner. And Harvey is Professor Emeritus of Psychology and Global Health here at York. He was our founding dean for the Faculty of Health here at York from 2006 to 2016. So he led the creation and the emergence of the Faculty of Health here at York. And he also, I'll just say parenthetically, led within that process, the process by which global health became a theme within the faculty, and now has, through his very diligent and careful attention to detail over many years, has now become a school of global health within the faculty. And Harvey was also Dean of the School of Public Health at the University of Toronto before he moved to York. And the School of Public Health in Toronto is now the Lana School of Public Health, for those who are unfamiliar. And we're very proud to say that Harvey is a senior fellow here at the Dahdaleh Institute, and his current focus is on promoting global mental health, and he draws on Eastern, Indigenous, and Western worldviews and practices. And with his partner Susan Harris, who's with us today, Harvey and Susan lead online sessions in Qi Gong, which is Tai Chi, and Mindfulness Meditation. And he calls these online sessions stress-busting, 30 minutes of magical practices. And I've done a couple of them, and I can tell you they are magical. They're fantastic. And the series engages York University students, staff, faculty, alumni, and the broader community in essentially stress-busting practices. Now, in terms of an introduction for today's seminar, we all encounter stress in our daily lives that at times can be difficult to manage, and this affects our health of our body, the health of our mind, the health of our emotions, and of our spirit. And practical approaches are needed that can help people and communities and even whole populations better manage their stress and foster well-being for themselves, but also for all. And to be effective as an agent of change in this regard, we must focus on practices for fostering first our own wellness and our own resiliency. And as Harvey will indicate, These seek to awaken our inherent wisdom and our capacity to heal. And when these are grounded and better able to help and heal others, as well as our planet, that's just a better outcome for everyone. So in this seminar, Harvey will begin with some interactive learning for stress busting via some Tai Chi mind-body practices. And then Harvey will briefly review some of the evidence from empirical studies and systematic reviews that support Eastern practices, including Tai Chi, mindfulness and meditation, acupuncture, yoga, and Ayurvedic medicine. And finally, he's going to engage in a dialogue about if and how the Dahdaleh Institute could broaden its vision to support members and associates in developing their personal practice plans for wellness and resiliency, which is an idea that I personally firmly agree with and adore very much so. Now, the seminar format, before we actually get to Harvey, the seminar format, if we ever get to Harvey, is a 1-hour event that will end formally at 2 o'clock. And we'll start with a 20-minute presentation by Harvey. And this will be followed by about a 30-minute question and discussion session. And I begin to conclude the seminars promptly at 1:55 because people have other obligations and meetings and so on. And just some general reminders, the seminar is being recorded. And also, please do mute your microphone unless you're asking a question or participating in an active sort of dialogue. And then also, please just use the raise your hand function at the bottom of your screen or the chat function at the bottom of your screen if you'd like to ask or pose a question. I'd like to just now turn over to you, Harvey. Welcome. It's great to have you here.
Thank you, James, and it's a real privilege to be here today. Put on my opening slide. Very comprehensive introduction. You've almost given my talk for me.
Oh, okay. Well.
The essence of it. So we're going to focus on healing ourselves, healing others, healing our world with a particular focus on ourselves. So that's really the main overview. James started with the territorial land acknowledgement, and I always do this when I'm starting my courses or giving presentations. And the only thing that's important to do is at the end of the acknowledgement to include a personal reflection. So for me, I grew up in small towns in southwestern Ontario, Goderich on Lake Huron, and then Woodstock, close to the Six Nations Reserve, but back in the 50s, 60s, and I had no interaction at all growing up with Indigenous peoples. Had a very stereotypic image of that, and my brother and I would play cowboys and Indians, and I look back on it now, and I really kind of cringe, and my family are settlers. My mother's family, 1840, came from Ireland with potato famine and settled up near Owen Sound, Meaford. And my grandpa and his 4 brothers all had farms in that region, and I would go visit every summer, and I didn't really understand that land was unceded, that we as settlers came and took that land. So I've been engaged in a very serious personal route of understanding the truth on my own family and others, and that is why when I was teaching my course on global mental health, I felt really important to include an Indigenous perspective and wisdom. So I think it's really important that we make this personal, not just reflection, but commitment to understand the truth. Then that's the basis to engage in dialogue for reconciliation. All right, so how are you feeling today? So you might do it on a scale from 1 to 5. 1, strongly disagree. 5, strongly agree. So are you feeling anxious, overwhelmed? Are you feeling down or depressed? And then third, what's the quality of your sleep? Are you having sleep difficulties? Now, when I asked this question at the start of my class, and we have data from University College students, about 65% will say they're feeling anxious, overwhelmed. About 50% feeling down, depressed, sometimes trouble getting out of bed, which gets into issues with sleep difficulty, which is the best proxy for your overall mental and physical health, if you're having sleep difficulty. We know this, we see this, COVID just ramped it up, made even more and more thing. So my question is, what are we doing about it? So let's stand up and let's do a little bit of a stress management right now with me. So.
What's that?
One-handed?
Oh, we'll do our best.
No, one-handed, yeah. I'm going to move up to the front here so you can hopefully see me. All right.
Yeah.
That's all right, I don't even see you.
Well, we need to see you.
I need to see you. So just begin by standing your feet shoulder width apart. Just soften your knees, soften your shoulders. Let your hands just sort of sit out in front a little bit. Little strings holding your body softly up to the cosmos. And just close your eyes or soften your gaze and just begin to breathe in slowly through your nose. Inhale. And exhale. Sometimes useful to count as you inhale. So inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, hold. And exhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. Just continue breathing on your own. So I'll start the Qi Gong practices with standing meditation. This is the classic standing meditation called Wu Qi. Already, as you're standing in this breathing, you should find your heart rate is starting to slow down, your blood pressure. And start to slow down your mind. Our minds are racing ahead. Monkey brain, it's called. Monkeys are jumping from branch to branch, and our thoughts jump from idea to idea. And 95% are thoughts we've already had. So how do you slow down your brain? So this is an incredible way if you need time during the day or just need to slow down. Very essential way of starting your practice. I'll say a little bit more about what we're doing Qi Gong and Tai Chi, but it's really important to me that we learn below the ears so you don't just kind of stay up there and your brain chattering away. So now just stand and start moving slowly left to right. Keep your body erect and then let your arms start to swing. Now let them go over your belly and then over your back. And if you can imagine a little light shining through from your belly button coming right through your back here, that point is a very important acupuncture point called the Ming Man, and hitting on that's great to have fatigue. So it's like getting a lightning flash of energy. So save your money from going to Starbucks, just have to stand up and just give yourself a nice opening of energy. So I'm going to go through 3 basic practices, and there's 3 basic themes in Qigong. One is all about energy. We all need more energy and less stress. So this is a way of activating energy. Now start hitting up just below your collarbone. And here we have the start of the lung meridians. And this is a great way to activate your respiratory system, more oxygen to our brain, and also our immune system, which can be really troubling us. Important in times of COVID. Now, just cup your hands up over your shoulders. And you can do these practices sitting down or you can do them standing. You just have to sit at the front of your chair. This is great for also shoulders are carrying so much of the weight of the shoulder, the weight and anxiety of the world, and also hits the acupressure point for clear thinking. So if you're getting fuzzy thinking, you're working on a paper or something, just up on your shoulder. Now come back down your chest. Back down over the belly. Now just let your arms begin to swing just very softly in front as if your fingers are going through water. So we were doing knocking on a door of life, and this is called water waves. So first is activating the yang energy. That's the powerful, strong energy we need. And this is activating the yin energy. This is a soft, restful, rejuvenating energy. And you can soften your gaze and just feel difference in how this is bringing out 2 major forces of our energy. So Qi Gong or Tai Chi is all about activating energy. Okay. A second is when you're dealing with stress, what about purging negative thoughts or emotion or ideas? So just start to shake. And Qi Gong began 5,000 years ago. A lot of them, people be watching the animals and watching the trees, and they would see animals would be shaking. Look at an athlete before the start of a race, right? Sort of shaking. This is a great way to let go of negative emotions or thoughts. And you want to make it shaking even harder. Kids love this. And let's just make some strong purging sounds. Are you with me? Let's just go. Awesome. You ready? Ah!
Oh, I got lots of purge.
Even louder. Shake. Hands out in front now. Up and down. Good for your wrists. Turn it over. Fingers in and out. Make it fresh. Coming down. Shake again. Shake. Yes, so this is the second part when you want to do purging. So anytime you get started, let something go. Let it go. It's gone. On into the ground, compost. Now come back into your standing meditation and just feel the bubbling, the energy up through your arms, your toes. Qi is life force energy. Gong means work or practice. So Qi Gong is all about activating our life force energy. Can't see the energy. Electromagnetic energies are all around us, right? Can't see it. Qi, you can feel it bubbling. The third thing is getting into a flow. How can you really get into a nice, activate energy and you purge negative energy? So how do you just get it all coming back into balance? So just have a little string holding your arms. Inhale and exhale. And soften your knees. Soften your gaze. Raise your hands. Inhale through your nose and exhale through your nose. So this is activating the parasympathetic system. Rest, rejuvenate, relax. Nice and easy. You can do this. Works great for the end of the day when you want to slow down before bed or times during the day when you just need to chill out. If it's easy just sitting in the front of your chair, and fun just to do with one arm. Concentrate on the arm. This is all about balancing the energy. And health, according to your Chinese medicine, it's all about homeostasis. It's about balance. So this is final major practice of Qi Gong is achieving this balance. It's amazing the effect it has. Don't think about it. Just focus on your breath and just let your arms and just slow it down. Nice and easy. Nature never rushes, yet everything gets accomplished. Wisdom of Tao Te Ching. More time. Just let it float down and put your arms just over your belly button, below that. This is the lower dantian, a major center of energy. And close your eyes or soften your gaze. Bring your feet close together and just let your body sway naturally. So this will do any final sort of balancing of your energy. You can visualize your bamboo gently flowing in the wind. Oh, bamboo in the wind. These practices have beautiful names. All about energy, less stress, keeping balance. Good for all ages. Take a final breath. Just come back into standing meditation and just take stock of how you're feeling now. We've done this at 9 minutes. I call this Qi Gong Basics 1, 2, 3. 9 minutes of basic practices. On my stress busting website, I have a video that carries this little routine, so check it out. Okay, thank you. Let's come back to our chairs. If I get this to work. Yeah, stop here. Okay. All right. I love this quotation from Rumi. Oh, just flipped over. Oh, what happened here? Okay. Yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I'm wise, so I want to change myself. So we in the Dahdaleh Institute are very committed to changing the world, right? But I also encourage us to be wise and focus on changing ourselves. So in the seminar, we've already done our interactive stress busting. It's a great way to start each day. Susan and I do it first thing in the morning. We do that, and then we do mindfulness meditation. I'm going to, in a moment, just give a little bit of the evidence around these Eastern practices, because a lot of people, when I started teaching, thought, oh, this is all woo-woo stuff. And certainly back to me 34 years ago, I thought, this is really weird, really strange. But the more you get and understand the inherent wisdom, and then increasing the Western science around that. And as part of the, on the website, there is a handout that I have as an attachment for the seminar today, and that lists systematic reviews in empirical Western science on all the various practices. So that's available. So it's important to know it's not just flaky stuff. There's really good hard Western science as well as Indigenous and Eastern wisdom science. I'm going to briefly introduce a planning tool that you can use. I encourage you to develop your own practice plan, so I'll just introduce that briefly. And then we'll open up with the dialogue about the Institute, and this could be an additional focus or theme to the major three themes that the Institute is pursuing. As I mentioned, when I started teaching my course in global mental health, instead of just teaching it from a Western perspective, which I might have done back in my UT days, 15, 20 years ago, I said, no, the world has changed, and I need to include an Indigenous perspective and increase an Eastern perspective. So here we have the image on the left from Eastern of the yin and yang, and you see that day flows into night, night flows into day, the whole notion of the interconnectedness, the relatedness. In the middle is a medicine wheel, and this is one version of it from Indigenous wisdom. And the key here is balance, and if your body gets really hurting out of balance, then the wheel gets squished in one direction, and it won't work very well. So how do you get your mind, your body, your spirit, your emotions back into balance? How do you sustain that? And Western health really has the major component is the biomedical model. Basically, you get sick, and medicine is there to try to fix you, and we find increasingly with chronic conditions, it doesn't help a lot and can make things even worse. The $250 billion we spend in Canada on health care, 95% goes into fixing problems once they happen as opposed to preventing them. And type 2 diabetes is a great example. It's eminently preventable, and yet we have this epidemic of type 2 diabetes. Contrast that with a public health approach, health promotion, ecological health. It really is focusing on wellness, and not just the individual level, but whole communities. So even within the Western perspective, we do have these broader focuses, but they tend to are totally dominated by biomedical science and the sick care model. A nice metaphor for this is the doctor as mechanic. So basically, when you're basically a machine, and the health professional is going to come in with the tools and fix that part of you that needs it. So you go to see this specialist, and they try to fix this part. You see a specialist here, when in fact our body is all connected, right? And the specialists don't want to deal with a problem in another area of the body, right? And so this is basically wait till there's a problem, and then you take your car in to get it fixed, as opposed to keeping it running well. Another way of looking at it is a doctor as a gardener, and here. The gardener is not separate from the garden. The gardener is part of. The gardener doesn't grow the garden. Nature does, and it's all interconnected. With the moisture and with the bees, the pollination. So it's the plants, the animals. So we as humans, we're just one in this ecosystem, and the health of an individual plant has a lot to do with the overall health garden. So this is a very different perspective, and it's closer to the Eastern and Indigenous worldviews. And a third one from Indigenous is the concept of all my relations, and this basically is I am connected to my 7 generations behind me and my 7 generations going forward, and I'm obligations to be a steward for the next generation. So I have these connections to all of my people, but all of the plants, all of the rocks, and at least a whole cosmos, right? So this notion of all my relations is really fundamental in Indigenous thinking wisdom. And I love this metaphor. Go to a forest, you see the birch, maple, pine. Look underneath, underground, and you see all the trees are holding hands, and we as people must do the same. And now Western science is looking at these connections between tree roots and particularly fungi called the mycorrhizal networks, and really understanding how to really care for each other. It's a great metaphor for what we need to do as humans. So just leave you with a reflection. What is health, global health? And what is illness? Because so often when we say the word health, people are thinking about illness. They're not thinking about wellness and how do you keep people, communities, keep our planet well. And then how do your answers change as you put on these 3 different worldviews and the connections amongst those? So this is what I encourage you to think about. As I said, yoga comes out of, if you go back 5,000 years ago, this technique is called Tao Chin. This would be the small communities in what is now India and China. And the villagers and others would be watching the plants, watching the trees, and just mimic practices. And I discovered there was great wellness benefits to that. The yogis sort of picked up on part of this particular on meditation, and it really evolved into yoga, which is now in India, and more on the China side, and through Taoism and traditional Chinese medicine, that's where you're going to get Qi Gong. And Tai Chi is just a particular school of Qi Gong that has, Qi Gong has over 3,000 schools. Tai Chi is more popular, at least as a term in North America, but it's just one element of Qi Gong. I can explain that more after. There's now a lot of evidence. I mean, yoga, I think the last 20 years has become increasingly popular. Go to all the fitness clubs, go online. There's increasingly good empirical science, and in the handout, you look at a number of the meta-analyses and specific studies. So it does a lot of good, help people quit smoking, reducing low back pain. Got a bit of care as well. You can get chronic strain issues from yoga. So all these practices have to be used with common sense. But anyway, I won't go through the details. You look at the hand. There's lots of science on yoga. Yoga is really out of Ayurvedic or Indian sort of tradition. Mindfulness really evolved out of Buddhist teachings, philosophies, and the Four Noble Truths about suffering, and then how you deal with suffering through the Eightfold Path. And mindfulness is just one element of that Eightfold Path. So mindfulness meditation has very deep roots in Buddhist teaching philosophy. Too often it's taught in North America just as a relaxation technique and isolated from what these are. And you're really missing the broader benefits without knowing what it's embedded in. Mindfulness, huge amount of research, probably the most now, and it's looking at how it helps with anxiety, depression, positive benefits, a lot of sort of imaging and that within sports, etc. And with the big magnets, with the MRIs, really mapping how in the meditation minds how it's influencing different parts of the brain, so understanding what it's doing. Western science, like how is it working? It's really quite amazing. So it's really quite a vast research area now, Western science. And again, Qi Gong, Tai Chi, really important for improving balance. And as you get older, like me, it helps prevent falls in the elderly. Some of my colleagues here in psychology and kinesiology, like Lana and others, have looked at Tai Chi. Not only improve balance with falls, but improve cognitive functioning. So it has a broad, so these techniques are giving like a whole body tune-up, not like taking a pill trying to deal with one particular part of your body. So Chinese-based medicine, I'll just give this as an example, so I'll just drill down a bit more on Chinese medicine. I could easily do it through Buddhist teachings or Ayurvedic. And health, it's all about homeostasis. And in fact, in Western medicine, homeostasis, like you want your blood pressure, heart rates to be within a certain, quote, normal range, right? So how do you, quote, keep things in normal? And pathology is when things, get out of alignment. So it's all about this. Here you can see the autonomic nervous system. So right now we're breathing, we're digesting food, our heart's going and everything, and we're not thinking about it, it is just happening. In fact, breath is the only autonomic function that you can have some control over, right? The rest of it just results from it's going on all the time. And too often, we have this snake chasing us, like we're under stress, and the snake might be in COVID, a whole bunch of stuff. The snakes are constantly chasing us, and that's generating what's called the fight or flight syndrome. That the sympathetic nervous system is generating cortisol and others, and ends up over time shrinking our arteries, getting coronary heart disease, and has a lot of sort of problem with stress. Contrast that with the parasympathetic system, and this is to rest, relax. Like this is when our body is rejuvenating. So we want to spend more time, the restful state before sleep, but can we during the day spend as much time as possible with the teeter-totter on the parasympathetic side? Because that's when we're going to be healthy. Chronic stress leads to illness, and again and again and again, Western science shows that. So it's all about creating this balance, and in particular, spending more time on the parasympathetic side. This kind of maps, if you look at the spine, and there's a nervous system, and it's linking with all the major organs, and this is superimposing just in Chinese medicine, where within each organ, they're seen as having both yin and yang elements. So you look at the stomach, and when on the parasympathetic side, when we're resting, the stomach is activated, so it's going to digest food. If we're under stress, digestion stops, and so issues are getting balanced. So each side of, you get constricting airways and relaxing airways on the sympathetic side. So the notion is, in the extreme, neither side is really good. Is how do you keep it in balance? But in our lifestyle, we are just constantly spending too much side on the sympathetic and in this fight or flight, and that's a major short, long-term cause of illness. Acupuncture, it's fascinating that over the last 4,000 or 5,000 years that acupressure and puncture evolved and was proven to be different effectiveness. And it's interesting, so this shows just on your arm, you can see when the nerves come up and then how they bifurcate. If you go to PC is the pericardium. This is one of the 14 main meridians. The pericardium protects the heart, and it comes down the inside of both our arms, right to your middle finger. Hit this point here, this is Qi Gong. This is a major measure point for basically if you're dealing with fevers, it's sort of like cooling the body over time. If you go further back where you see PC7, that's where the major bifurcation of this, the medial nerve to the thumb and to the fingers. And this is if you're getting carpal tunnel syndrome, right? It's damaging those nerves, and acupuncture is basically trying to help heal those points. Go back to PC6, and I'll show up now in a moment. That's where you're getting a shift up to a small part of the palm, and this is an important area for dealing with nausea or seasickness. So this acupuncture, it evolved without knowing the fact that it's interesting, it's overlaying now, and look at the neurology, it's big parts of the body. So I find that really kind of cool, right? And this is a pretty interesting one, pericardium 6, it's called the inner gate, inner path. Just take your hand, and if you just hold it over like this, and you'll find the two main tendons will kind of pop up. You go down 3 finger points, and just press in there. Your thumb. So just put your hand over just to get those 2 tendons, and come down 3 finger points from where your wrist is. And you can go to a store, you can buy these little gizmos like magnets and that, for seasickness, motion seasickness, or you can just do this for yourself. So this is great for dealing with nausea, a whole range of sort of the health issues, called the inner gate. And it's basically controlling the inner gate, the flow of energy. You think of meridians as rivers, and we want it to flow at the right weight. We don't want blockages, but we don't want too little or too much energy. So this is what this is getting, that right level of flow. So that's a little practical thing I'm showing you. The effects are really interesting from acupuncture. When you put in the needle, it has a local effect that might be helping, if you have the carpal tunnel syndrome. But then it's also affecting the vertebrae, spinal cord. It's affecting the midbrain and then your higher cognitive functioning. And why that's important is because if I have a pain, and if I'm dealing with it here, but over time, pain tends to get recorded up in the limbic system. That's sort of the old brain, the amygdala. And a little pain here is also activating those memories of pain, and your cognition, your thinking brain can then either amplify or decrease that. So I have a chronic problem with my left ankle. I sprained it 40 years ago. And I remember one time I was down in Moorvale Park, and I had to limp about 2 miles back to my home, and my son Mark about 5 then, and I actually flipped through the air as I went over, and I blood over my knee, and I came in, and I told my son I'm fighting with a dragon, but I'm okay, Mark. Anyway, but I can still remember that, right? It was so sore, and that's that memory. And now, 40 years later, I have osteoarthritis, and it hurts. And when it hurts, it's also activating those memories. And so through mindfulness practices, I can have a nice calming conversation, and I can look at my ankle and energy flow, and I can cool that down. Or I can get upset, I can get pissed off, or I can try to get some Western medicine sort of fix it, which doesn't really work with ankles. So it's really neat to see how the interconnectivity between a point here is also affecting the higher cortical function. I'm going to skip through. I'll just do really quickly. I just want to show this study. This one is really interesting because it looked at acupressure for chronic pain, but in this meta-analysis, they actually got the individual data. So let me just show you. There were 29 trials, almost 18,000 subjects, and they got the actual raw data, because often when you're doing meta-analysis, you're just getting group data. This is right down at the individual level. So they did these analyses. So they had 20 trials had sham control, which I'll show in a moment, and 18 trials had non-acupuncture, basically usual care. And the question is acupuncture better? This is a sham. So basically, this is they put on your wrist here, and you press it down. And if it's real acupuncture, a little needle will go in. And if it's a sham one, it doesn't go in. So and randomized, so you don't know whether you're getting the needle or not, right? So that's the sham condition. And the results were basically just comparing acupuncture to sham. You're getting a small, it's statistically significant, but beyond that, it isn't clinical or practically meaningful. So that's giving a small effect. But the biggest effect is comparing acupuncture to the non-acupuncture controls, and showing you're getting really moderate effects for osteoarthritis, which I have in my ankle, and neck pain, back pain, and migraines. And this slide really deconstructs the overall effect size, showing that about 60%, when you look at the effect, has to do with the sham needle above on non-acupuncture control. So when the sham is there, I think I'm getting it. So my mind is telling me I'm getting acupuncture. So it's really the power of the mind. That's the psychology. And then when you compare the acupuncture just with the sham, it's giving about 40%. So about 40% is due to the actual physiological activity going on, and about 60% has to do with our expectation of psychology. But we're all integrated. It all works together. It's not placebo. If I expect that this doctor is going to help me, and more likely they are going to help. Research shows that consistently. So acupuncture can have moderate effects, and particularly shows how you can deconstruct physiological effects from really the mind. So it's mind, body, or working together, not apart. All right, so moving to the end. So what's your personal practice plan? And on the website, there is a handout that I have given there, and it's from an assignment I give to my students. So, and I encourage you, and if you want to undertake this, I'd be pleased to interact with you as a coach. So step one is let's do a review of what your current practices are, things that you'd like to do. So the tree of contemplative practices is a really useful construct for that. So you can look at the roots, or what actions you're doing to increase your awareness, and what actions you're doing to increase your spirituality, your connection to the world. So activities could be movement, like doing Qi Gong, you're doing there, dance or yoga. They could be creative activities, music. It could be relational, getting into storytelling, deep listening. So there's a blank one in the handout. So fill in what activities you're currently doing. Put that in green, and in red, put in what activities you would like to do. And then pick at least one, you go up to 3. Pick one practice. Okay, so I've been intrigued by what Harvey showed. I want to look at Qi Gong. All right, so that's I want to learn how to do Qi Gong, and I'm on a stress busting website. I can see the practice video, so I will do that. But in order to really be effective, this is then using more of a Western approach, a SMART goal framework, and many of you may be familiar with this already, but you have to be very specific of what you want to accomplish, and the answer, the who, what, when, and why. It has to be measurable. So you measure how often you're doing your progress, and maybe also monitoring your basically how you're feeling about yourself, your calmness range, right? It has to be attainable. It fits in with your day, where you're doing that, so it's realistic and timely. Okay, so I'm going to try for 6 weeks, and at the end of each week, I'm going to keep a little log of a couple of things of how I'm feeling today, and then I'll evaluate that out. So I encourage you all to think about. It's now after New Year's. You must have resolutions. What are you going to do in 2023? So this is the stress busting. Just one example. If you want to join up, we're starting a winter series on January 30th. Details are at the website. I just want to close. So let me just close with Capacitar is this magnificent little NGO that Sue and I have been engaged with, started by Pat Kane over 40 years ago, into 45 countries, teaching very simple practical techniques like Qi Gong. And the notion here, the experts come to teach us about trauma or tell us what we are traumatized, but they don't tell us what we can do for ourselves. And most people are to get access to, quote, an expert, even here in North America. And the mission of Capacitar is heal ourselves, heal our world. That's really, I'm just adding heal ourselves, healing others, heal the world. So this is really, it evolves from. So my question, the Dalla Institute has this great vision and these themes for planetary health, humanitarianism, and foresighting. And I might characterize these as healing others, healing our world. So I would like to, in our minutes that are left, open a dialogue about, well, what if we were to look at a theme for the Institute that would foster healing ourselves as a health-promoting organization? And so let's discuss, as a foundation for accomplishing these 3 incredibly important and distinctive themes for this Institute. It really differentiates this Institute from others really around the world. We are a health-promoting organization fostering the lifelong wellness and resiliency of all members and all those we associate, affiliate with. So that's my question I'd like to leave us with. And with this beautiful quotation of Angel Pogo Williams, without inner change, there can be no outer change. Without collective change, no change matters. So it's all about beginning with ourselves. Thank you.
That was great, Harvey. Thank you. So, I mean, there's so much there, but I will say that when we were exploring the research focus for the Institute in our first year, we actually had 5 themes, and the additional themes, one of them was focusing on technological change and its impact on human health. So very broad, but looking at things like artificial intelligence, looking at things like genomics, looking at things like interdigitation of electronic or digitally based systems with human physiologic systems around learning, memory, movement, motion, and endocrine systems. And then the fifth theme was really about exploring indigenous and non-indigenous, and we just categorized it very simply, indigenous and non-indigenous conceptions of health and wellness. And the question was very much alive, and I actually really like the way you, personally, I really like the way you kind of formulated that question into a theme that is, at least as far as I can see the way you formulated it, is, that's just a first reaction, but it is a smart theme in the way that you kind of formulated it. It's very specific, it's practical, measurable, and so on. And it also deals very specifically with the membership, if you will, of the Institute, and how through particular approaches to mind and body wellness that can actually have a significant influence on global health. So heal yourself, heal the world. So I mean, from my perspective, I think it's a very powerful idea. It's very simple, but it's absolutely not simplistic, right? I mean, it's obviously, look at what you just covered in the last half an hour. There's just a deep range of and a wealth of thousands of years of experience and history and knowledge that has accumulated into very specific cultural forms of health and wellness. So I'm not sure how other people are thinking or reacting, but let's just open it up for a few minutes of thoughts and comment. So anybody who wants to offer any thoughts or comment or pose a question, Harvey, please let me know. Isaac, you were nodding a lot.
Yeah, I found
during the seminar. What are your thoughts?
I really liked the focus on the holistic focus of your vision, and I was just thinking near the end when you asked about healing ourselves. I thought whether it's possible to truly achieve that without healing others and healing the world too, and I don't know. I thought of the idea. You're told on the airplane to put your own oxygen mask on first, and that quote also kind of pointing that out. Like we can't actualize the kind of changes that we want to see in the world if we're not ourselves, capable of achieving that, the healthy energy that we need in our body. So, nodding along, I found it all very insightful, and my brain is buzzing now with different
ideas. Because it is synergistic. Yourself positions you to be much better for resiliency, to help others, and helping others, by that feedback, the gratitude, compassion, and research showing that it influences you and your own psychological state. So it's beautiful interaction. But to be able to have the personal knowledge, I wish I'd gotten into this 40 years ago. I would have saved a lot of suffering. And I would have managed things a lot better, and it's easy to fit in. It just takes it's a bit of a mind shift as far as priority, and what I mean, like healing ourselves, healing the world. That's the whole force, right? And you can't have one without the other. So my interest is that let's just bump up a bit on the healing ourselves within the Dahdaleh Institute, and I'm now a senior fellow here. I'm available to my quote elder as an elder to help. Background psychology, help behavior change. I mean, systems change. I mean, that's stuff that I read. So there's a resource that the Institute has, just with me, but you know, met with others and with Susan on mindfulness. So another question.
Hillary, and then Eunice. Go ahead, Hillary.
Yeah, thank you. This was fantastic. I was really struck, especially in the practice that we did together, the metaphors of nature and the connectedness of ourselves with being a tree or feeling the water. Oh, am I frozen? Did I freeze? Sorry. I would wonder about how you see this challenge in connection with planetary health that is already part of the Institute, as I feel like there's some real overlaps, especially with Indigenous methodologies, Indigenous teachings. Yeah, I was struck by that, so I would be really interested to hear more.
Yeah, I think an inherent part of planetary health, and the notion, like trees particularly, there's some beautiful practices in Qi Gong, embrace the tree and that, and when I'm teaching that, and he's saying, one is, okay, let's just stand up, okay, let's position and embrace the tree. And as you're breathing slowly in and out, and visualizing the beautiful trunk, the tree as its roots, and now my feet are in the ground, the roots getting energy, and energy coming up through, and then there's the branches, leaves, it's getting energy, you know, from the sun, photosynthesis. I'm giving off CO2, and photosynthesis, the trees are taking that and creating nutrients and also giving back oxygen, you know, so this perfectly biotic relationship. And good. Yeah. I want to end up with my arm like yours.
Nope, not today.
So there's no, I think that's sort of the beauty is that, and I think the metaphors in learning Qigong, like there's a whole called animal frolics, and it's great for teaching kids. One of my favorites is dog wagging its tail, and you can't, and if you're not feeling good, and you're really, you know, so one of them is, you know, you start moving, you want to get sort of lateral circulation, right, movement. Then you move butt back, and then you just start wiggling your tail, and dog wags its tail, and I defy you to do that when I have a smile on your face. You know?
I'm just smiling looking at you.
Yeah, looking at you. So these things are actually, they're fun, and they're, yeah, so to me, and I say it evolved out of the wisdom of watching the plants and watching the animal and watching what they do, how they care. That's where these specific practices come from. Then that helps us in our role as gardeners, right? You know, as you know, helping back to deal with our broader planet and the broader cosmos.
Eunice, go ahead.
Harvey, thank you so much for that. I'm so glad I attended the seminar today because I had long COVID, and as a part of how I was going through my symptoms, a lot of what you discussed today were things that I came across. So I'm so glad that there's someone here at the Institute who looks at things like this. One of the things I found was that even despite the evidence that we have for many of the methodology that you mentioned, it's still not covered by insurance. And so I was wondering, how do we integrate this into health policies that we have at the governmental level, or policies that are set out by the multilateral agencies to incorporate Indigenous or more local knowledges that we have for health?
That's a fantastic question, and when I'm teaching my course, students will come back with that same question, and what are their answers? Like, okay, so what are our answers? We have our School of Health Policy and Management in our faculty. We have our Global Health program and graduate program. It's a great area to do research around, but also sort of impact, and understand what are the social political forces that are keeping the biomedical model, you know, basically hogging the puck, you know, in hockey, as far as the $250 billion or more that we spend in healthcare, and And it's not lack of empirical evidence. That's why today, and I give the handout, I mean, there's a strong research base behind yoga. I mean, there's just as strong as a lot of other, quote, medical interventions, you know. So but the public, you know, and even it's not taught to health professionals, especially. They're really underaware of that. Limited perspective. So part of it is getting education about these techniques and what the Western science is. If there's even limits of Western science studying it. The Western science is reductionistic. It wants to look at one specific part, have a control, and it's not looking at the interaction, right? It's not looking at you're in this overall planet. And for that, we need different models, different ways of understanding, and it's more Eastern Indigenous, quote, science. But to me, it's a policy. It's a public policy issue that could be addressed, and will take advocacy, and I would love to see that transformation. And I'm out of public health. I mean, it's part of. Spent 30 years at University of Toronto in public health and here. And how do we shift that focus? Because I say we spend 95 cents out of each dollar in healthcare goes into fix-it medicine, and less than 5 cents, more like 3 or 4 cents goes into prevention and health promotion. Yet, when you understand the social determinants of health and environmental determinants, that's where the huge impacts can be if we shift to thinking upstream. So I'm really encouraging yourself and others, for students, there's great research questions, and for faculty members on how do we work with community NGOs, other organizations, and to really lobbying to bring about the policy shift. And it's not lack of research or science, it's not lack of availability. It just has its current mindset. And the current power structure wants to keep that, you know. It's basically doctors, hospitals, and pills, pharmaceuticals want to keep their business, right? If we're successful with these other approaches, we're going to take away, actually it's going to transform that business, not take it away. They're going to do different things. And the overall health of our population globally will rise. So that's, to me, key. So it's a fantastic question, and I encourage you, others, let's work on answers to that, you know, and ultimately shift public policy.
Thanks.
Great.
So I'm going to wrap up with just a couple of comments. Thank you, Harvey, for a very practical and evidence-based approach to better personal health and wellness, and really defining how that specifically relates to global health, and why doing this can make us better at that, given what we are here at So your challenge around integrating this into the activities and the vision of the Institute, I think it's a great challenge, and I'm very happy to help you, you know, develop that. I mean, what I think my very big comments are that we have to remember that this is a research institute, and that's what we do. Now, we also have to recognize that research requires a lot of inputs, and there's no greater input than a healthy researcher, right? So
producing healthy people.
Oh, exactly. Planet. Look, I mean, you know, to me, it's so obvious. It's not like we don't need to, you know, come up with a great tome, you know, to justify this. This is pretty straightforward, right? So I think we just take a very practical, critical problem-solving approach, right, to this, to what you've posed, and then we can move forward pretty quickly. So I think that the key thing that you've kind of said is this is about supporting members, right, and in developing a personal self-care practice plan. So I think that's really fundamental, and that's the big center point, right, of the initiative. But so then very practically that requires leadership, right? So not just sort of us putting something on the website, but it requires leadership, and you've obviously now just expressed strong interest in taking that. And I think that would be fantastic. And one of the things that I would also say is that because it's an institution, and I'm speaking of the university, I think it's really important that we, this is also kind of the way the Institute has worked, right, is that we reach out across the university and try to find like-minded people around a particular research endeavor under one of the existing 3 research themes. If we were to add a fourth, right, a fourth goal, which would be supporting members in developing a personal self-care practice plan, something like that, I think it would be really important that we reach out to other faculty, right, who can participate in the self-care process and in teaching and enabling and supporting a self-care process. And that would be really important. And I think, too, given that this is a research institute, there are huge research opportunities, right? And for this, and for the focus on supporting members in developing a self-care practice plan. And it doesn't, and again, I look at that from a very practical perspective. How do you set up a program? How do you do it in a way that is smart, uses your 5 criteria? And how do you then implement that program so that obviously those who participate are benefiting? We expect that, right? But how do we monitor, evaluate, determine what works, what doesn't work, in terms of programming, in terms of content, and so on? And I think those are really important research questions that can have massive impacts on actually spreading this, right, to beyond York, to other institutions, and also spreading it beyond the institute, this little tiny institute, to other centers of practice within universities, within this university, but also within other universities and other institutions. And if you're, that's how I'm kind of initially reacting to what you're saying, and I'm very excited about supporting you in that process, and also bringing this to the formal governance structure of the institute, because we'd have to add something, right? That's, but you don't have to do that in order to get started, right?
Begin small with being with ourselves, so just to organize. Is there an interest in having a subsequent Qi Gong session, indoor mindfulness, maybe do that once a month, try that? There's very small steps.
Yeah.
And maybe we want to look at our global health undergrad program as a first. We have over 10,000 students in the faculty of health. Yeah. I know in teaching my course, and I think Noor is still here, took my global health course. Incredible. Whoa, Harvey, all students should be getting access. There's a student interest is inherently there. So, and it's an empirical question to do the research around it, how it helps you personally, but also it gives you tools, so when the experts, you can't get access to experts, but you can teach these simple techniques to family members and friends. And when you're going into a community that's been traumatized, you've got some things you can do to help that community. This could really come out of capacitar, and there's good research showing the capacitar approaches. So, but anyway, I think we'll talk about how to, but I think on a very simple level, you've got to walk the walk, and
you got to do the dog wagging the tail.
Yeah. We all have to, and find what version of wagging the tail works for you at this stage in your life. Yeah.
And with that, Harvey, I just say thank you so much.
Pleasure.
It's really, really great. And let's get started. Somehow we'll meet again soon, like in the next day or two, figure out what the next steps are.
Great.
And thank you.
Pleasure.
And I just remind people next week's seminar, January 18th, is with Bruce Mao, and as part of our Global Health Design Seminar Series. And it's the title of the seminar is Designing One Health Governance for Antimicrobial Stewardship. And if you need more information or more detail on that, you can just visit the Dahdaleh website under events, and it'll describe more information and how you can participate. So, although I do believe the registration's closed. Anyway, this seminar for today, we're now closed. So thanks again, Harvey.
Pleasure.
And thanks to all of our online participants. Bye-bye.
Cool.